Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. We're stepping into the Lion's Den. I'm excited for this one, man. It's something a little different. I mean, it's not something that we do often. Something off-site and a completely different fighting environment, if you will. So I'm looking forward to this one, and I don't know. It could very well be better than I think, or it could just completely suck. I don't know what to expect, but looking forward to this one. So you put it on the list. So how in the hell are you doing, and why'd you pick this match?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. We're in the heat of the summer here. This is good. Can't believe it's, at this point, late August. And so Payback this weekend, all out this weekend, a lot of wrestling coming up. And so that's excited about. But this one, yeah, it's just we have not done a singles Ken Shamrock match. Yeah, ever. And so we had the kind of Survivor Series stuff, but I really wanted to, he just seems like, kind of like a Brock type of guy where like if you were to see him on the street, he could kill you, and he's just not talked about much nowadays. I feel like every once in a while he'll pop up in an interview and seems like, has his shit together. Like, doesn't seem like he's, crazy post wrestling or anything like that. And, he'll comment every once in a while and doesn't have any hot takes or anything like that, but just always interesting to see him. And I remember, when he was in his prime, like he was like, he had the look, he was great. And so I think, just kind of looking forward to talking about that. And then also, Owen Hart, we enjoy talking about him as well, here too. And so that's just one. And like you said, we'll get into it, but it was just a totally different way how they did this match, which I think was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about Ken Shamrock too. You're right. It's just someone that's just, I'm surprised he's not around a little bit more. You don't hear more about him. So anyways, let's get right into this one and jump into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So SummerSlam 1998, and we'll talk more about the Attitude Era, I think, during this, if we have time. If not, actually, next week we can talk about this. But just a topic I want to spend a little time on is just looking back at the different eras, because I feel like we're in an era right now in the WWE, and there's been other eras, and I want to talk about those eras and compare those eras. I think that'd be fun to do, but. This was obviously, smack dab in the middle of the Attitude Era. So SummerSlam 98, we have three dark matches that I'm assuming were on Heat, but man, LOD losing to Brian Christopher and Scotty Taylor. Man, it just, and again, I know that, people say physically they were, washed up and there was no gas left in the tank, but man, it's just hard to imagine Legion of Doom not dominating. Gangrel is going to defeat Dustin Runnels, and the Disciples of Apocalypse are going to defeat Bradshaw and Vader. So those are our three pre-SummerSlam matches. Now the show starts off D'Lo Brown defeating Val Venus by DQ in 15 minutes to retain his European Championship. You've heard me say this before, Jeff, but neither guy could take a pin. Like, how do you go 15 minutes and end it in a DQ? Like, I feel like we're getting less of that now. I mean, TV's fine, but like a pay-per-view, what's the point of going 15 minutes if you're not going to pay it off at all?
Especially to open your show with that. Like, get ready. Here comes, D'Lo Brown's music hits to open.
Yeah, and I mean, if you need one guy to win to continue the feud, then you have it be a fluke, or you have someone cheat, or there's devices where guys can win or lose without the feud necessarily ending, and I think they've done better with that. The Oddities are going to defeat Kai and Tai in a handicap match. I think it was 3-on-4. The Oddities had 3. Okay. X-Pac's going to defeat Jeff Jarrett in a hair versus hair match in 11 minutes. Edge and Sable are going to defeat Jacqueline and Mark Marrow in 8 minutes. Then the match we covered. Then the New Age Outlaws are going to defeat Mankind to win the tag team championship in a Falls Count Anywhere handicap match in 5 minutes. And really, Jeff, I think that the match we're going to cover was part of the hype for this show, but really it's a 2-match show. You have the IC ladder match, Triple H defeating The Rock, which was a fantastic match between these two, and I really think elevated both of them. And then Steve Austin defeats The Undertaker. Highway to Hell, great build, great pre-package, but the actual match, again, they just didn't have people for Steve Austin to feud with during this era, as crazy as it sounds. So that's the show. How in the hell did we end up in a Lions Den match between these two?
Yeah, kind of interesting. And like you said, overall, like they could have shuffled this card a little bit and it would have been better, but who knows? Like, it's just, we'll never know. And so this SummerSlam, of course, taking place August 30th, 1998. Like I said, we haven't talked about Ken Shamrock a whole lot, so I wanted to get a little bit of a background here. He actually made a face debut. It would have been February 24th, 1987. So or 1997. Yikes. Yeah. Not that old. Had about an 18-month, or 18 months prior to this show. It was on Monday Night Raw. Again, early June of 1998. This was when he was in the King of the Ring tournament. He beat Mark Henry, The Rock, and Jeff Jarrett, actually winning that 1998 King of the Ring. He had a brief feud with King Mabel, as we all know, the very memorable Ken Shamrock King Mabel feud. That I know it's at least in your top 5, maybe top 3 for a lot of you. So I just, of course, going that. And so kind of a little back and forth after that, Jeff Jarrett, going at it with some of the people from that King of the Ring tournament, but then getting into a feud with Owen Hart. There was actually at Fully Loaded, there was the Hart family dungeon match taking place at that one. So Fully Loaded was July. We get into August at this one. So it's kind of a continuation of these weird locked in a cell type, or, locked in a room type matches. For Owen on this one, it would have been just about a month after WrestleMania. He had actually been tagging with Mark Henry. He had a tag team match with Ken Shamrock against Mark Henry and The Rock. It's at the time still going by Rocky Maivia. He turned on Shamrock in that match, became a part of, as we all know, however you feel about it, becoming one of the leaders of the Nation of Domination. And this is when, and I had forgotten exactly when this started, but this is when he started the enough is enough and it's time for a change catchphrase. And so really after he joined the Nation, that's when you had them feuding with DX, but coming back though to feud with Shamrock, was actually had hurt his leg prior to that Hart family dungeon match. And so they kind of, they tagged, they broke up. It looked like they had a story planned for these guys. And then Shamrock got hurt, but then you come back, Shamrock comes back, selling the injury, it was real, but using it as part of the story to get these couple of matches. And so you kind of wonder what would have been if he wasn't hurt, but we still end up with this stuff. So they obviously felt pretty good about having these two guys together, continuing the story. So this is coming off of the Hart family dungeon match. We now get this Lions Den match. And like you said, it was filmed a little bit different. It actually, the overall was taking place at Madison Square Garden. As you'll see when you turn this on, they are not in Madison Square Garden. They are actually somewhere else for this one. And so, but we'll talk about that a little bit during the match as well, though, too. But yeah, that's a nice little build, pretty much.
Good, man. Well, I'm pumped to cover this one, and we can look it up. But that was, and I should have mentioned that, but this was in a adjacent property of Madison Square Garden. I believe it's called the Theater, Madison Square Garden Theater, or something like that. But it's just a building that's either attached or across the street from Madison Square Garden. And I think, and I could be making this up. So, but I think that was a building that was at least considered or looked at for Monday Night Raw back in 1993. So think of a building that's very similar to that. And of course, they ended up just down the street at the Manhattan Center. So I'm pumped to cover this one. And by the way, if you've never been to Madison Square Garden, you got to go. It's right in the city. It's so iconic. There's just something when you hear the wrestlers talk about the Garden, they're not wrong. I mean, you just feel it, right? And it's just such a cool spot. So, obviously New York City, New York crowd, but you get that in Brooklyn too, but the Garden's just different. But attend something there live. Go to a Knicks game. Go to a college basketball game. That's what I used to do, is go to a lot of college basketball games there in the Big East tournament. But just an awesome venue. Ironically, I've actually never been there for wrestling. I've just been there for like 4 or 5 other things. So we're at the 1 hour and 14-minute mark of SummerSlam 1998. 1 hour and 14-minute mark. SummerSlam 1998, season 11. Jeff, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
I am anxiously awaiting this one. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's get into the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Champion in the UFC is so focused.
Just looks so intimidating.
He is so mentally ready. And certainly it is possible, King, to be too ready for something.
A real good building. I don't know how interesting it was to be there live. It's like, it's real flat. Like, I'm assuming that like they just brought in some risers, but for the most part, everyone's like on the ground. I'm assuming that they live streamed the rest of the SummerSlam show for this audience so they could watch the rest of the show. So Dan Severn is in Owen Hart's corner. Shamrock's here. I don't remember this Owen Hart t-shirt. He's got those black and yellow tights on when he was doing kind of the caution tape thing, which I always thought was hilarious.
Yeah. So to kind of, you were right. It is the theater. Little quote on this one. It said, with SummerSlam being held in Madison Square Garden, the set was typically small. Thus, there was no room for a wrestling ring and an entirely separate Lions Den cage. The solution was to put the cage downstairs in Madison Square Garden's theater.
Got it. Okay. So that's true. They wouldn't have. It wasn't like they had the big set where they could have put this somewhere. Okay, that actually makes sense. But yeah, it sold some extra tickets for it.
Yeah, and one of the reviews is the inaugural Lions Den match felt more like an event in its own right rather than a mere gimmick match on a pay-per-view undercard.
Now, do you have to win by submission?
I will look it up. I'm not sure.
Okay. Man, Shamrock just looks so real in everything that he does. Okay, so what's funny is, think about this, okay? So Shamrock, what was the only thing that probably held him back was his personality. Just, kind of dry. He's not going to go cut a great 5-minute promo. Okay, understood. Imagine Paul Heyman with him.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, that would have been that's how you would have, it would have been an entirely different career.
Yeah. So this says pinfall submission, exiting through the door or climbing over the top of the cage to the arena floor. But I'm not sure at this point exactly what the rules were. It says there's no DQ, anything goes. Yeah. But at this point, they may have not, it may have been a little different rules, but yeah.
I mean, this is a good, I know it's not maybe as useful as a wrestling ring, but you can throw guys kind of into the cage. You could have them bounce off the cage and kind of function like ropes. You can climb the cage and jump off the platform that's there. The actual mat looks like a ring canvas. So, I mean, you should be able to do any bump that you would do there. So, I mean, there's still a lot you can do with this. I mean, you don't want 30-minute match inside of there, but, you can do a really fun 10-minute match. Owen's bleeding from his mouth.
Already, yep.
So Shamrock last wrestled in 2001. He had a match in TNA, a 8-person match. And then a couple matches in 2020 in TNA. And then prior to that, his last match between 2004 and 2009 was a 2004 match against Shinsuke Nakamura.
It wasn't there. I think most recently the news I remember about him was they just had this line that was the Riddle Rollins match. And didn't he want to be involved with that in some way too, either as a ref or something like that? I know
probably. They must just not. I mean, he's never been back for anything. Obviously not in the Hall of Fame, never at like a Raw anniversary show. I mean, I've never heard anything, but like, he's just not someone that they invite to stuff. I think he may just be a little bit of a wild card and they just don't bother. But yeah, they just really don't do anything with him.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
obviously
for a like that Riddle thing, gosh, I mean, what a perfect ref, obviously. Best matches of his career. The best match was he was part of that Calgary Stampede match. Now, if you can believe it, according to Meltzer, this was one of his best matches.
Okay.
This was up there. There was a 3-way steel cage match with Mankind and The Rock. There were a couple singles matches with The Rock. There's a Mankind match. There was a 3.25 star match with Vader. So, all his WWE stuff. There's only one TNA match that kind of registered here, but yeah, interesting.
It is interesting watching them like bounce off the cage like the ropes, or like come off the cage like the ropes. It just doesn't make a ton of sense, but whatever.
You mentioned the King of the Ring. To me, I think part of the King of the Ring's downfall was not giving people that automatic world title shot. So to me, the King of the Ring, I mean, the Bret Hart one, okay, he wins. That's cute. Owen wins. Okay. We're, continuing the Bret Owen thing. When Mabel won, it was for a title shot. I think it should have been for a title shot every year. The year Lesnar won, it was for a title shot as well. That was the year.
That's right. Yeah.
So I just think every year it should have been. Now, they may have said, oh, well, we're doing Undertaker Austin. I mean, figure out a way to get out of it or whatever. But like, I think the King of the Ring, I think actually, if you treated it, in a way like a Royal Rumble of the summer, hey, in order to get that title shot or a title shot at SummerSlam, you have to win the King of the Ring. And you didn't have to do the whole tournament on the pay-per-view. I mean, you could just do semifinals and finals, or you could just done the finals for the men, final for the women. But with the 2 world titles now, you have the flexibility to where you could have done that. So that's what I would have suggested may have kept it more relevant.
Yeah, I think that, like, especially with you and me going back and watching a lot of this stuff, I think it would be interesting just to have like a King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring show and have all the matches on that, because I think then you build up to it. It adds a little bit more to the story about like they've overcome like this whole day, like just doing the finals in Saudi Arabia, like I think takes away a little bit from it. Also, like, can you name this year's King and Queen of the Ring?
Well, like, no. Wow, that was a really cool move by Shamrock. He kind of
that bounce off the
he kind of bounced off it. Wow, hell of a kick too, man.
He's hitting him stiff. Yeah, he did it again. Oh, man. Yeah, and there was a nice little suplex there by Owen.
Oh.
Damn, cool.
Wow. Yeah, this is pretty good, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, but you don't know who the winners are.
I don't remember who won the King of the Ring or the Queen of the Ring, honestly. I mean, I watched it. Who do you remember?
No. All I know that it was at the Saudi shows, which was very good. Which name the last you and I were name the last bad or even mediocre WWE pay-per-view.
Oh God, it's been years. I mean, maybe one of the Thunderdome ones or whatever wasn't that great. I mean, Performance Center pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, everything they've done in front of a crowd's been at least enjoyable to watch, if not off the charts good.
Every single time. Yeah. And that was, I'm finally getting a pay-per-view that's coming near me in a couple months or a couple weeks here. And I convinced my wife it's going to be her first show. And so I know I texted you. I was like, it's like a deer in headlights. I got to play this carefully. Like I got it ready. And so I'm able to do this. And so, we're going to get tickets and go to that. But yeah, I don't think, like me, just as a wrestling fan, I'm excited, but I'm excited because I feel like even for her, she doesn't necessarily need the story to get super involved, but I think that it's just the crowd. Hopefully I'm praying for a good crowd. So yeah.
Well, I hope so too. It's interesting because Pittsburgh and Indy kind of came out of nowhere after London and Puerto Rico and WrestleMania, right? So it's in Montreal. So it's kind of weird, but I'm hoping that those crowds both show up.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, and so I'm getting Fastlane. And so I hope like it's after Payback. Probably the next one could be Survivor Series after that. So we could be on the road. They haven't officially announced it, but I'm like early October. So, it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen, with that. But right now where they're at, I can't see him doing wrong. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny. You're going to take your wife. I'm going to take the next time they're here, and I don't know when it is. The next time they're here, I'm going to take my 3-year-old to his first show. I have no idea how it's going to go. He may not sit still. He may hate it. Or he may just be mesmerized. I really have no idea. I'm kind of hoping it's like a Raw, so there's like actual stimulation. All right, so ankle lock for Angle. Severin's not throwing in the towel.
He's walking away, kind of turning his back on Owen. Looks like Owen is tapping. Yep. Quick one, or felt quick at least, but yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it was. A lot of action, fast paced.
Man, there was money in Shamrock. And part of the problem, Jeff, is during this era they were so resistant to managers. Like you look now, and now we have some managers. Obviously, in the 80s, every heel had a manager. I mean, what's Roman Reigns without Paul Heyman? What's Brock Lesnar without Paul Heyman? I mean, some of these guys just need a mouthpiece. Maybe not forever, but like to at least, carry them along. And I don't know. I think that's what he needed. He just needed a manager. So anyways. I really like that. Let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
All right, what'd you think?
That's great. I think that's one of those like short, fast-paced matches that
10 minutes, 11 minutes was perfect.
And the gimmick didn't interfere. Like it was, while it was important to the match and the story, it was not like it didn't take away from it. It wasn't, extreme or, elimination chamber, extreme rules or weapons all over the place. Like it also made sense. Like that's like Hell in a Cell. Triple H doesn't want to do it anymore because it needs to make sense. This made sense for these guys to be in this one. Yep.
I thought the gimmick, there are some limitations in that, but not so many that they can't work a good match and it be exciting. So just a really big fan of that, man. I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah. So after this one, you had actually Shamrock winning the vacant Intercontinental Championship. It was on Raw. He beat X-Pac. There was just an 8-man tournament. His first defense was against Mankind, beat him. That was at Judgment or In Your House, Judgment Day, whatever you want to call it. He then was in the Deadly Games tournament. It was actually the vacant WWEF championship at Survivor Series. He eventually lost to The Rock on that one, and then joining the corporation as well. And so he kind of wanted to be a part of that faction. And so he defended the title, or Intercontinental Championship title, against Steve Blackman. That was at Capital Carnage. And then a weird, he teamed with the Big Boss Man, actually. Of course, we know I'm the Big Boss Man mark around here. And so the two of them going after the tag team championship, unsuccessfully going after D-Generation X, and not winning at Rock Bottom in your house. But it was interesting because they didn't win there, but they did. So, of course, you forget about the Ken Shamrock Big Boss Man Tag Team Championship run, and at the time making Ken Shamrock a dual champion. And so forgot about that, of course. And so, just really weird. And so, but Hart on this one, of course, was with the Nation of Domination actually through most of 1998 until they started to break up. He ended up teaming with Jeff Jarrett, as we know. And so they had getting into the Blue Blazer as well. So you had the Blue Blazer with Hart and Jarrett defeating Ken Shamrock in the Big Boss Man for those tag titles. And so just kind of weird. And then they ended up a couple of different matches, but nothing, whatever, not really a big deal. I know Jeff Jarrett talks about Owen Hart a lot on his podcast as well too. He's got the episode, especially when Owen Hart passed away, like talking about that. And so that would kind of go back. That's one I'd recommend kind of go back and watching that one. So just overall, like, again, it feels weird that after this match, it culminated in a Boss Man, Shamrock, Jarrett, Blue Blazer tag championship run, but that's wrestling for you in the late 90s. So there you go. But all right. So PWI Shamrock was number 8 in 1998. Owen was 15. And so really high numbers on this one. The Torch, Shamrock hit a nice jump reverse sidekick, but Owen came back and rammed Shamrock into the cage. He applied Severn's chokehold finisher, but Shamrock climbed the cage with his feet, flipped over, and applied his ankle lock finisher. Severn walked away disgustedly as Owen tapped out, except for the rebounding off the cage, which they could have done without an inventive hybrid between a standard cage and UFC style contest. 3.25 stars. One of the writers said Owen and Shamrock did a good job working in what had to be limited circumstances. The small confines of that cage combined with what looked to be a rock hard floor had to be difficult. Both men get a lot of credit for taking repeated bumps on it. And then Observer Newsletter just kind of 3.5. So nothing, just kind of wrapped up the match. This Dan Severn stuff didn't really make a ton of sense. So 3.25, 3.5. Tom, where do you have this one?
I have this at a 7. I mean, like a really solid 7, good, like really enjoyed it. I maybe even could put it higher. I mean, it's not going to blow you away, but again, 10 minutes, quick, good feud, good story, something different. A really, really, really solid 7. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I think that, and I will say that exceeded what I thought would happen too. So, that's one where I didn't know what to expect, especially if you say, Lion's Den, but that was high action, high intensity, a lot happening. I'd say if you got 10 minutes, go back and watch that one. Like that's one, especially that it's worth it just to kind of see what they're doing and what's happening. So, good stuff overall. I want to remind everybody, of course, too, don't forget about our sponsors here on the Payoff. You got Manscaped, 20% off, free shipping using the code Payoff, as well as Caldera and Lab, 20% off using the same code Payoff. And so just Payoff everywhere. Try that code. I don't care what you're going for. Let's see what's happening. So Manscaped, 20% off, free shipping, Caldera and Lab, 20% off. Whether you need that, the men's grooming or, men's products, whatever you're looking for, it's there. So, Tom, good stuff, Tom. We got some good stuff lined up for next week and the week after as well too, but let's send them home happy with this one.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. This was good work. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.